YouTube, what's up? It's Cakes and Darius back at it again. I told y'all I'm gonna be consistent with this content on YouTube. I'm back. The title for this video is God's Timing for Your Life. I probably won't title it that, but just know I'll be talking about God's time. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8, His ways aren't our ways and His thoughts aren't our thoughts. So a lot of times when we're doing things according to God's timing, we either gonna feel like we're behind or we gonna feel like we can't do it in the allotted time that He's given us. So that's why it's important that we're walking by faith and not by sight. What I mean by that is, as I mentioned in the last video, make sure you check the last video if you want to see that. It's gonna be times we feel like we're not good enough. We're gonna feel like we can't do the things that God's called us to do. But the good thing about that is, that means that you're walking by faith. That means that you're stepping past your comfort zone. A lot of times, we're not allowing God to use us because we stop where we feel like He can't use us. We tell God, oh, you want me to do that? Yeah, I can't do that, so let me just stay in my lane, not knowing that God created you in the womb. So He already knew you before you knew yourself. He knew you before you was even formed in your mother's womb. So that's why when He's calling us to do things, He's calling us to do things in a certain amount of time. He's gonna give us the ability to do those things, and our environment is gonna start to yield to us. Shout out to Myron Golden. I'm gonna drop a link to that video too, because he was talking about God's timing and how our purpose yields to us as we remain obedient to God's commands. So that's another point I'm about to talk about. When you're staying obedient to God and His commands and you're following Christ and you're following Jesus, then that's how you be able to see things differently. The Bible says in the book of Romans, don't conform to the patterns of the world, will be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve God's perfect will. So as you're in that transformation process, you'll start to see things differently. You'll start to see yourself differently, and throughout that process, it's like you gaining superpowers in a way. You'll start to do things that you didn't think you could do. You start to say things that you didn't think you could say, and things will start to happen in a shorter amount of time than as it would have had you been doing things your own way or had you been relying on your own understanding. That's why in the book of Joel it says, I will restore what the locust and cankerworm has eaten. If God is in control of time, we gotta also believe that God can do things in a short amount of time.
Message!
So that's why I'm sure you've seen testimonies of people before where they accomplished a lot of things in a short amount of time. And that's because it was in God's will. Now, I'm not saying that people always accomplish things fast when they're in God's will, because there's some people that's not following things that God's called them to do, and it appears like things is going well in their life, but you know, that's why you gotta walk by faith and not by sight. The things that we see isn't always a good thing. The things that we don't see isn't always a good thing. What I mean by that is, you can look at even things in your own life. To other people, it can look like, oh dang, he doing good. Or even to yourself, it can look like things are going well, but just deep down in your heart, you know, dang, why don't I feel fulfilled? Why does this feel like I should be feeling good about this, but I don't? It's because you could be out of alignment with your purpose. That's why, you know, there's a lot of people that chase things like money, chase things like fame, but they don't realize that they're not chasing their purpose. The Bible says, seek me first and all these things will be added to you. When you're seeking Jesus first and you're seeking your purpose first, everything else will be added to you. That's why you won't be at a point in your life where you feel like, dang, I'm not fulfilled right now. I was chasing this my whole life and now I just feel empty. You won't feel empty because you're chasing Jesus, and through that, you'll receive the desires of your heart. Seek Him first and He will give you the desires of your heart. A lot of times, we go into prayer and we think that we're telling God what we feel like we want, or we feel like what is on our hearts. The Bible says the heart is deceitful above all things, so that's why even if we're not chasing worldly things, we can be chasing something that God does not want us to chase. So that's why we gotta constantly stay in communication with God, because He'll give us the game plan. You know, anything that you do in life, you gotta seek God first, because seek Him first and all these things will be added to you. But in the process of you seeking Him first, He's giving you the game plan. There's been things that God's told me to do in my life that I didn't want to do. And then the more I started to do it, the more I started to see, oh wow, I actually like doing this. Oh wow, I see the full picture. Because in the beginning, there were things that God told me to do and I felt like, dang, I don't know why God told me to do this. I felt like when I was doing, you know, something else that God told me to do at the time that I just wanted to stay with, I felt like I was, you know, going on the up and up. And God was just like, all right, so you gotta do this now. And then after I started doing it, I just became really impatient. And I was like, dang, I don't wanna do this. I started getting frustrated and things like that. But throughout that whole process, it was building the foundation and building me for what God had in store next. That's why the Bible says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because it's producing fruits in you, it's producing patience, it's producing perseverance. So that's why when God puts you into that next season or that next blessing that he has for you, you've already, went through the process. You've already been transformed into the new man or woman of God that he's called you to be. So when he's, sending more blessings on top of you, you're able to handle it. That's why you gotta go through certain processes where it feels like we're not worthy enough, we can't do things. Because when you're going through all those trials and tribulations, that's gonna get all that stuff out of you. So once you get to a point where God is, to whom much is given, much is required. When God is requiring more of you, he already put you through so many things that you're like, oh man, I've been through this before. I already know what to do. I already know when I get stressed, I gotta pray. I already know when I feel like I'm going through a cycle, I gotta fast. I already know that when this person is, making me mad, I just gotta pray and control my emotions and not, lash out. A lot of people are walking out of their purpose because, they're lashing out. They don't have emotional intelligence. They're doing, gambling and things like that. But not even that, you're just doing a job that's outside of your purpose. And what I mean by that is, I'm not just saying like, you're doing a job, fund something else that you're trying to do, like start a business or something like that. I'm saying that you staying at a job for X amount of years because you're afraid to chase what God's called you to do. You're afraid to go after your passions. That's basically those things taking you away from the life that God has for you. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life, the Lord will find it. There's a lot of things that you gotta overcome in order to fall in accordance to God's time. You gotta, cast all your cares and anxiety onto him because he cares for you. If you're holding on to fears, if you're holding on to anxiety, if you stay in that job, if you steady gambling on apps, if you're just doing things outside of God's will, you're not gonna become the person that God has called you to be for his will. Because when you're not becoming the person that's required to receive a certain blessing, you're not even gonna recognize the blessing. Because you're gonna look at it and be like, dang, that doesn't look like what I prayed for. Or your mind isn't gonna be able to conceptualize the opportunity that's in front of you because your mindset is stuck on something else. You didn't go through the process to seize the opportunity. So that's why when we're yielding to God's commands, even when we can't see the full picture, over time we'll begin to see, oh wow, I see why God had me do this 2 months ago. I see why I had to go through this, strenuous process where I felt like I was isolated, where I felt like I was losing things, where I was getting sick, all these things because God is producing a fruit inside of you that you can't currently see right now. That's why the Bible says, you may not understand now, but at a later time you will. At a later time, everything will make sense. Everything doesn't have to make sense right now. And that's another reason why when you're going through certain seasons of life, you can't get confirmation from other people. God will test your faith in a way where you can't get increased faith from other people. He did that with me. I'm not gonna care. I was in the season where God told me, nah, you're not gonna be able to go to other people to increase your faith. You just gotta believe in me. Because if that would have happened, it would have been like, all right, I felt like God was telling me to do this, but instead of just trusting God, I'm gonna trust God if this person agrees with me. You can't do that. So that's why in certain seasons, it's gonna be people that don't see your vision at all, family, friends, whatever. But you gotta hold on to what God told you. God is testing your faith. God is trying to see if you're gonna believe him or you're gonna believe other people, or you're gonna believe a bunch of signs. Now, God will give you confirmation and things like that, but you can't trick God. You can't trick God into thinking that you really got faith if you don't. So you gotta really be about it. But throughout that process, you'll start to see that things that may seem like it'll take a year or two to accomplish, God can make happen within months, within weeks. When I went on a fast last month, really the last 2 months, but last month I felt like, damn, I got so much done these last 2 months than I did the whole year. But that's because this whole year I've been going through the process, and now it's like things are starting to click more. When you get into that flow, when you get into God's flow, when you get into alignment with God, things will begin to make sense, and then that's how you know that you're in accordance to God's time, and everything will just begin to flow. But this case of Dare, she made this for. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Back on YouTube. Back like I never left. Happy to be back. Yeah, I'm out.